Hello, it's Wednesday today. If you missed Monday's video, go back and watch that. On Monday's video, I explain why we're going to be coming up to the week of prayer and fasting and outlining exactly kind of what it's for, what it's about, essentially praying for the admin lead or operations manager for Lighthouse Community Church to really take us into the future. Today's video, I want to look at, I suppose, more like the biblical mandate for prayer and fasting. And then Friday's video will be a shorter video, but probably around the practicalities, how you can actually get involved, because we want this shouldn't just be an adult thing. Why are our children not doing it, right? And maybe just challenge us a little bit in what is prayer and fasting. So today, I'm going to quickly run through three main stories. And if you've heard anyone sort of talk on prayer and fasting, you probably would have heard of these stories. But they're the three main ones really we get our kind of our mandate for why we should pray and fast. And the first one you find in Exodus 17. I haven't got time to look over it. But essentially, Moses just led the people, the Israelites, out of Egypt, and they're in the wilderness, and they come up against an enemy, Amalekites. And essentially the story is boiled down to this, that Moses goes up onto a hill, and in obedience he raises his hands to God, and all the time he's got his hands up, the Israelites are winning. And when he gets tired in his arms, just through fatigue, his arms just go down, then the Israelites start losing, the Amalekites start winning. And so he gets, his brother and someone else, and they basically raise up his hands, one on either side, and while his hands are raised, the Israelites continue to win, and they win the fight. What has that got anything to do with prayer and fasting, I hear you ask? The link is that through a very physical obedience to what God has asked or God has said, there seems to be a spiritual release. And in that, do you know what I mean? That is not going to help, physically isn't going to help the Israelites win the battle. But in doing that, there is a spiritual release that aids the army. Just like when we fast, we do this in obedience. God has asked us, prayer and fast. It's in Scripture. We're going to look at some of those in a minute. And in doing that, although you think, well, how can giving up food or giving up telly or giving up something, how's that going to help us achieve what we're asking for? Well, it's a simple act of obedience that we're expecting a spiritual release. So go and read the story of Exodus 17. The second one is in Daniel 10. Now, Daniel is the story of Daniel and how he fasted, a very interesting one. And you can find a lot of information online about the Daniel fast. But essentially, I'm going to boil the story down for you. Essentially, Daniel is petitioning God for an atrocity that's going on, and he begins to fast. Now, the Daniel fast he says he gives up meat, delicacies, and wine. So it seems to be quite a really pared back, basic diet, and he seems to do that for just over the 3-week mark. What's very interesting is, around the 24 days, we're told, so you can read this in Daniel 10, around the 24-day mark, he actually gets a visitation from an angel. And it begins to kind of explain why it has taken this length of time. Because the angel was released with Daniel's answer the moment he began to pray. But in the angel's words, in how he describes it, is he was kind of delayed by the Prince of Persia. Now, the Prince of Persia is a principality, spiritual force, an agent of the enemy, if you like, that's hindered Daniel's response. There is a strong link, and it's very evident. And the angel says it was only on day 24 that the archangel Michael was then sent to help me against the Prince of Persia. And then it's almost like now I can come through. And I wonder how many times we have prayed and God has released the answer, but it's in the supernatural. We do not know. And we kind of go, well, it hasn't happened. I prayed, it didn't happen. And so we give up. With Daniel, he continues to pray, he continues to fast. And something is going on in the spiritual. And it seems that at day 24, just over the 3-week mark, something is broken. And there is a mandate for us to petition God, to persevere in God, to pray and to fast, because things are going on in the spiritual that we cannot see in the natural. And the third story I want to take you to is in Mark 9. And the disciples are praying for a boy who is demonized, who is afflicted by demons, and he has seizures. And they pray, and nothing happens. And again, make the story short, Jesus comes on in, the big JC, and he prays for the boy, and the boy is healed. And the disciples go to Jesus afterwards, and they're like, what's going on? Like, what? I don't understand. I don't get the difference. We prayed, nothing happened. You prayed, something happened. Jesus' response, and you can read this in Mark 9, is this kind only comes out through prayer. Now, in lots of Bibles, there's also a little number which drops you down to the bottom, and it adds prayer and fasting. You see, the disciples went and prayed. Nothing. Jesus went and prayed. And you can argue, was Jesus currently on a fast right there and then when he prayed? It doesn't matter. What it shows us is that, again, there is things in the spiritual which is only moved through the obedience of fasting. Now, I could have delved into a lot deeper in the theological, harking back to famous people who have done this and seen amazing things happen in their life. What I want to encourage you to do in building up to this week of prayer and fasting, if you're thinking, should I not, read the scripture. Find out that it seems to be part of Jesus' life. It seems to be a part of these big name Christians' lives. Their regular routine of life. It's not just the one-offs, although it has its place, like we are about to do. So I want to encourage you to enter into this week, and not this week, but in a couple of weeks, of prayer and fasting, to give yourself to it. Just lean into it. We really want to get the whole church behind this. So I hope that's helped. Encourage you. Those verses are Exodus 17. You'll find that, chapter 17. Daniel 10. And in Mark 9, you'll find those 3 stories. Read them for yourself and be encouraged, be stirred, and prepare yourself for the coming weeks.